Assalamu alaikum and Dobre Utra to our Russian colleagues. We have 6 speakers in this session, and if you also count me, 7. So we have 2 hours for this session, and 15 minutes each have been allocated to each speaker. And I hope that they would make their presentations within this time that has been allotted to all of us. But using my privilege as the chair of this session, let me first share my opening remarks with you that will set the tone for our further discussion. It's a matter of great pleasure for me to chair this session of the conference relating to regional connectivity and economic cooperation between Pakistan and the Russian Federation. Pakistan and Russia enjoy close and multifaceted relations which are based on mutual respect, goodwill, and trust. Over the last 2 decades, both sides have worked closely and succeeded in enhancing relations in multiple fields, including trade, energy, security, and military-to-military cooperation. Pakistan and Russia also enjoy close cooperation in multilateral fora and come together in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It is heartening for me as former ambassador of Pakistan to Russia, who also served there during the Soviet times, to note that cooperation between Pakistan and Russia in a number of fields has enhanced recently. This includes cooperation between the institutions of higher learning of Pakistan as well as think tanks of the 2 countries. Let me recall here that in Islamabad, Strategic Vision Institute over the last 2 years has organized a conference on various issues with their Russian think tank counterparts. In 2023, they organized first conference, and last year they organized the second conference. But I'm glad to note that this is the first international conference between Pakistan and Russian universities in Karachi. Pakistan, as we all know, during the Cold War, Pakistan was in Western Bloc and was aligned with their policies. However, even then, we maintained good relations with the Soviet Union, and all of us know that a steel mill, which is located in Karachi, was made during the Soviet times, and also a number of power projects, including at Gudu, and also OGDCL were established with the assistance of the Soviet Union. I wish to underscore here that all of us are meeting here, that is the Pakistan side and the Russian side, within the framework of political interaction between our 2 countries, which has enhanced significantly in recent years. Let me recall some recent meetings between our leaders. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and President Vladimir Putin had a bilateral meeting in July last year on the sidelines of SCO, Council of Heads of State Summit, held in Kazakhstan. Deputy Prime Minister of Russia, Alexei Overchuk, paid a 2-day visit to Pakistan in September last year. Prime Minister of Russia visited Islamabad in October last year to participate in the summit of SCO, Heads of Governments, hosted by Pakistan in Islamabad. During these meetings, Both sides reaffirmed their desire to intensify bilateral relations in political, economic, defense, and other fields. They identified trade, industry, energy, connectivity, science and technology, and education as areas of mutual interest. The achievement of a significant milestone in bilateral trade of US $1 billion last year was also highlighted in these meetings. The Russian side significantly offered cooperation to Pakistan for promoting our relations with the Eurasian Economic Union and conveyed Russian support for Pakistan's membership of BRICS. Both sides have been making efforts to enhance Pakistan-Russia bilateral trade. Our bilateral trade is discussed within, and cooperation in many other fields is discussed within an institutional framework called Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific, and Technical Cooperation. The 9th session of this Intergovernmental Commission was held in Russia last year in December. Pakistan and Russia organized the first ever business forum in Moscow, in Russia, last year, and the most important outcome of that forum was the signing of MOU on barter trade. We all know that there are thousands and thousands of sanctions on Russia, including on their banking sector. So this MOU would be helpful in enhancing trade in multiple fields, particularly because there are no banking channels that exist between Russia and Pakistan at the moment. Pakistan and Russia have also been trying to establish an energy corridor between the two countries. Bilateral cooperation in the field of energy started in May 2023 when we received a shipment of 100,000 tons of discounted oil from Russia. Since then, Pakistan has imported more than 1 million tons of Russian oil. In September 2023, according to a press release by the Russian embassy, 100,000 tons of LPG was exported to Pakistan by Russia. For long-term cooperation, Pakistan and Russia have signed 3 agreements and MOUs on energy projects. Number 1, in 2015, Islamabad and Moscow signed a USD 2.5 billion contract to build North-South gas pipeline, which is now called Pakistan Stream. Number 2, an intergovernmental agreement on cooperation in the sphere of LNG was signed between the two countries in October 2017. And number 3, an MOU was signed in February 2019 in Moscow on conducting feasibility study of a subsea pipeline from Persian Gulf to South Asia. This was signed while I was there as ambassador. Now, both sides have also been trying to establish connectivity through maritime, rail, and road routes. In May 2023, the first direct shipping service between St. Petersburg and Karachi was launched. Arrival of Nicoline vessel MV Crystal St. Petersburg on 25 May 2023 at Karachi port marked the commencement of this service and establishment of maritime corridor between Pakistan and Russia. According to media reports, Pakistan-Russia International Freight Train Service is expected to commence its trial operations by March this year to boost regional trade with Russia, Iran, Turkmenistan, and Afghanistan. Pakistan and Russia signed a memorandum of understanding on cooperation in railway sector in June 2024. This MOU laid the groundwork for this ambitious project, which promises to establish a more efficient and cost-effective trade route connecting South Asia and Central Asia with Russia. Taliban rule in Afghanistan has also offered opportunities to enhance trade with Russia and Central Asia through the land route. Many noteworthy developments have taken place in this regard over the last 2 years. Let me highlight some of them. According to Pakistani businessmen, 90% of Pakistani goods exported to Russia by land route are passing through Afghanistan and Central Asia. In 2023, trucks carrying goods from Russia and Kazakhstan made their first ever trips to Pakistan. In March 2024, 16 trucks of Pakistan National Logistics Cell, NLC, transported Pakistani citrus fruit to southern cities of Russia called Derband and Grozny. The trucks traveled through Iran and Azerbaijan and reached Russia in 18 days, covering a distance of 6,000 kilometers. NLC trucks have also transported goods to Kyrgyz Republic through the Karakoram Highway. Pakistan and Uzbekistan have signed MOU for construction of railway link between the two countries through Afghanistan. According to Kazakhstan's Ministry of Trade, the country wants to develop road and railway links through Afghanistan to connect with South Asian and Gulf countries. And finally, in April 2024, a convoy of Pakistani NLC trucks transported goods through Afghanistan to Tajikistan's capital, Dushanbe, from Pakistan. Pakistan and Central Asian countries are also working on long pending and long delayed projects. There are two such projects. One is Tapi, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India gas pipeline, and the other is Kasa 1000 electricity transmission project. This project is likely to be completed this year. Now we have a number of projects that I have outlined. Connectivity has been proven, but it requires focused attention at the government level. At the private level, things are happening, but push is needed from the government side. And I have been at various forums talking about one format, which is the Moscow format of consultations. Now, this format established in 2016 to focus on Afghanistan and help promote peace process in Afghanistan. I was part of it. It was a very effective format, and I think that in order to focus on connectivity and development, we need such a format, and Russia could take initiative in this regard. Thank you very much. Our first speaker today is Professor Dr. Talat Wizarat. She is former chairperson of Department of International Relations, University of Karachi. Madam, you have the floor. Please. It's up to you. You want to speak from here or from the rostrum?
I'm very grateful to the organizers for inviting me to speak before this August gathering. And I'm also very grateful to all the people who helped me out when I was coming to join this session also yesterday. There's one word which I would like to pass on to all the young people. You know, when I developed all these inabilities, I thought, should I give up my academic pursuits? Should I confine myself to my house? And a big no came from my mind. I said, I'm not going to leave my academic activities. And I'm lucky that I found very understanding people, so thank you, all of you. I'm going to talk about Pakistan-Russia relations, especially the economic component of that. And I was thinking whether, Pakistan-US relations developed in a certain way. There was a lot of dissatisfaction among many Pakistanis. We felt that we were being taken for granted. There was no, United States used Pakistan to promote their agenda of wars in this region. They used us on many occasions, and at the end of it, their demand was do more, no appreciation, and in the process, Pakistan has ruined its economy. If we had utilized all this time to develop our economy, I think we would have been much more developed and prosperous today. So I think the realization that things are not going in the right direction came at that point, when we realized that we are being taken for granted. There's no appreciation for what we are doing for our region. And apart from that, there was also a feeling that as long as we remain dependent on the US, they are going to use us in their various wars. Now you will ask me, you will say, why is US involved in so many wars? Various explanations are given, but I feel that because they are exporters of arms, they are really developed in that area. Their technology is really developed in that area. And if you are exporting arms, then your future lies in war, creating conflicts so that you can sell your arms. There's more demand for arms. And I was reading No Exit from Pakistan by Daniel Marquet. He's an American writer. And in his book, he has said that we cannot leave Pakistan because Pakistan is a nuclear power. Pakistan is very strong in certain areas. It has a big population. But at the same time, we need to control Pakistan. And to control Pakistan, we have to be there. We cannot allow Pakistan to become a leader of the Muslim world. Now, I found it very strange when I read this. Recently, I read a book written by my student, Hassan Sadiq. He's now shifted to US, and he wrote that book. And that's a very informative book, and I found it very interesting. In that, he's given a quote that General Ashfaq Kiani said that when the US attacked Afghanistan, their real target was Pakistan. They were planning to stay in this region, increase their hold over Pakistan, and to denuclearize Pakistan. So if this defines the subject of Pakistan's relations with the US, then I think we need to look for some better alternatives. Countries prosper on the basis of economic development, not on the basis of wars. And you can have economic development if you have peace in your country and peace in your region. We all know that Pakistan and China produce JF-17. It's a very low price but high quality aircraft. Saudi Arabia wanted to buy that, but the US pressure on Saudi Arabia was so great that they did not buy that plane. Wherever they have the ability, they dissuade countries from buying this Pakistani Chinese co-produced aircraft. If we could sell these, our economy and other, things produced in Pakistan, our economy would be much better. I also feel that Western oil companies will not develop Pakistan's offshore oil fields. Some Western oil companies gave the impression when PTI government was in power that oil is available there in our, territorial waters. But when they did further studies, they told the government that there is no oil. My perception is, many people feel that perhaps that was after doing research, they found there is no oil. My perception is that it's not in their interest right now to develop this oil, because right now I think they are trying to put economic pressure on Pakistan. Finding oil would neutralize that entire policy. So that's why they are not very keen, at least for now, they are not very keen to develop that oil. IMF, because our economy is not doing well, we have to go to IMF every now and then. And IMF's conditionalities are detrimental to our interests. For example, they have forced Pakistan to increase the price of energy, electricity, and our goods have become so expensive that we can't compete with other countries in the international market, which means that our exports are going to decline and our imports are, of course, always increasing. So if this is a rather, depressing picture, what steps do we need to take in order to improve our situation? I think Pakistan-Russia relations, after our disillusionment with the US, I think we are looking for allies who are technologically advanced, who are ready to share their technology with other countries. And I have found one thing in Russia of today and also of Soviet Union era, that Russia treats its allies with more respect and with more understanding. So I think Pakistan-Russia relations, if both countries pay attention to this area, and if we do our homework, then I think this can offer good possibilities. Cheaper Russian oil, gas are being imported by various developing countries to their advantage. And I think Pakistan can also invite Russia to invest in prospecting for oil and gas in Pakistan. If Russian companies are involved in this venture, I think we can probably, get some results. And Russia, as was mentioned by the chair of this session, that Russia during Soviet era established a steel mill in Pakistan. Our wrong policies have resulted in decline of that steel mill. We looked upon it as a venture to create jobs. That was not its purpose. The purpose was to create a foundation for solid economic development, industrial development. I think if we change our approach, do some reforms, involve Russia in, helping us to revive the steel mill, it'll be a very solid investment in Pakistan's future. Another area where Pakistan can gain a lot from Russia and China is, we can ask them to help us in developing our resources. We were told when I was in school, college, that Pakistan has no resources. Now we know that Pakistan has a lot of resources, but we need investment and we need technological support to develop them. I think Ricochet is not doing too well because of the approach of multinational corporations involved in Barrick Gold and all these. Naturally, when there is no supervision or poor supervision, these companies are going to take all the benefits and leave us high and dry. So I think that we don't supervise, we don't control the multinationals who come and exploit us. Another very important requirement is good law and order situation. Unfortunately, law and order situation has been declining for many years. It's our fault as well as the approach of our adversary right across the border. It's well established. I'm not talking about some conspiracy theory. India, people who were arrested, terrorists who were arrested, said that they were financed and armed by India. So this is another area. Russia, China, Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan can work together, sharing our whatever intelligence we have in the region. By doing these things, I think we should be able to control the law and order situation. I was very disturbed recently when Pakistan, Afghanistan, and before that Pakistan, Iran had problems with each other. I think they are created by those who don't want investment in Pakistan, and I think we should always be open to exploring our own faults as well. Russian interests will also be promoted if there is peace in this region. If there is constant war between Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, and even India and regional states, no one is going to gain. And I think all stand to gain if there is peace in the region. India has a different perception. They have different priorities. Even if we leave them out for the time being, I think other countries can be convinced to work for peace. And I think Russia and China can play a vital role in this area because they have influence in Iran, Russia, Afghanistan, and the region as a whole. And this connectivity project and the energy corridor, all these things require a very peaceful environment. If we have peace in the region, this region can become prosperous. All of us can become prosperous and well-developed. I curtailed my paper. I had a written paper. I've curtailed that. I have focused only on the main points because we have several speakers. And thank you very much. Rest of the thing can come out during discussion.
Well, thank you, Madam, for sharing your very insightful views with us on many issues, in particular Pakistan's relations with the US, opportunities that exist in relations between Pakistan and Russia, opportunities that exist in the region. I couldn't agree more with you that in the past we have been pushed into wars that were not ours, but we had to fight them for various reasons. But in 2015, Since I was the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also the Additional Secretary, Middle East and Africa, Pakistan took a decision in principle not to become part of wars that are not ours. And we have maintained that policy. You also mentioned nuclear program of Pakistan, which has been a target. Our nuclear program guarantees our national security. Our nuclear program was initially peaceful, but we had to develop weapons also because our eastern neighbor had started developing nuclear weapons, and as we all know, our eastern neighbor poses existential threat to Pakistan. We have faced a lot of pressure on our nuclear weapons program in the past from the US and other Western countries, but we have never compromised, and we will never compromise on this because that guarantees our security. One last point, developing relations with one country does not mean downgrading relations with other countries, because foreign policy is not a zero-sum game. So Pakistan must avail all opportunities that come our way. With that, I wish to invite our next speaker, Mr. Boris Guzier. He is Deputy Trade Representative of the Russian Federation in Karachi. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I'm honored to be invited to this international conference of Pakistani-Russian relationship and to be speaking here. This conference has gathered seasoned researchers presenting their papers with in-depth scientific analysis of various particulars of Pakistani-Russian relations. I'm afraid my speech will not match these high standards. I am not an academician. The Russian Trade Mission I represent here is a governmental agency aimed at promoting trade and economic relations between Russia and Pakistan. My speech will contain no analysis, just a short review of the current status of these relations. First of all, I would like to inform you about the positive changes in the Russian economy nowadays. We have been forced to work under unprecedented sanctions pressure for 3 years already. Nevertheless, the Russian economy, despite all sorts of restrictions, continues to grow. According to the Russian statistical data, in 2024, the Russian economy grew by 4.1% annually. So in Russia, statistics are published by calendar years, which coincide with Russian fiscal year, so I will operate calendar years. Russia today is among the top 4 world economies in terms of purchasing power parity, after China, USA, and India. Relations between Russia and Pakistan are based on long-term friendship and trust. We see a mutual interest in cooperation, and we have a great potential for its development. 2 meetings, which my colleagues already mentioned, at the highest level took place in 2024. Contacts between economic authorities, executives of both countries became regular, as well as the information exchange through diplomatic channels. We appreciate the warm attitude of your country towards a mutually beneficial dialogue. In December 2024, we held the most successful intergovernmental commission in Moscow, at which specific agreements were reached on the development of bilateral relations in such areas as trade, economic and customs cooperation, finance, banking and stock exchange cooperation, interaction in the field of energy, collaboration in the industrial, transport and agricultural sectors, as well as cooperation in education, science, culture, information and communication technologies. Bilateral trade turnover is developing steadily. Over the past 5 years, it has grown 1.5 times, and in 2023 calendar year, it reached a record high of $1.1 billion US. Russia is known as a major exporter of oil and gas, but the wheat was the main item exported from Russia to Pakistan in 2023. and in 2024, preliminary data shows it as well. Crude oils holds only the second place. As it was officially announced by the Pakistani government this year, Pakistan does not plan to import wheat due to large leftover stock from the last year. However, we are aware that this season, the planted area under wheat has been reduced. Coupled with droughty weather, this makes us fear that the wheat crop will be less than expected. In case of wheat shortage, Russia is ready to resume grain supplies immediately. Apart from wheat, pulse or legumes is the second major agricultural commodity exported from Russia to Pakistan. We also export other food and agricultural products. Russian halal certificates are now recognized in this country with no additional local qualifications. Such an agreement was reached last year. This year, we expect the growth in export of Russian-made mineral fertilizers and the crude oils as well. The share of machinery and equipment in the Russian export to Pakistan is much less than it potentially could be. And we work hard on correcting this. The agricultural sector, being the basis of Pakistani economy, it employs about 40% of the population, and its GDP share is 23%. Over the past years, agriculture has grown in Pakistan more than 6%. However, annually. However, the level of mechanization of the agricultural sectors remains low. So Pakistani farmers need more than agricultural machinery and equipment to change this. We see significant potential for cooperation in this field. Leading Russian companies are ready to offer modern models of machinery. Apart from tractors that you, I think, successfully produce yourselves now, Russian can offer windrowers, swatters, grain and forage combined harvesters, grain, seed cleaning machines, storage silos, etc. And also machines and equipment for food and for food processing industry. We hope to expand cooperation in the pharmaceuticals industry. Russia is able to provide Pakistan healthcare system with high-tech innovative medication treating such diseases as cancer and diabetes. In turn, we are interested in Pakistani mass market drugs, which are largely produced by Pakistani pharmaceutical companies. Chemical products have always been one of the main articles in our bilateral trade. The potential of cooperation in this sphere is enormous. Russia produces all kinds of chemicals, and our prices are mostly competitive. The trade missions receives a lot of requests from Pakistani companies for supplies of chemicals, including methanol, polypropylene, high-density and low-density polyethylene, and many others. Modern Russian mining machinery and equipment can be in demand in Pakistani mining and quarrying sector, including marble extraction. In the field of digital technologies, we are ready to offer our partners modern high-tech solutions in the field of cybersecurity, smart cities, e-government, artificial intelligence, and other. Cooperation in power sector has huge potential, mainly in the sphere of hydropower. Russia has a very vast experience. And of course, I shall mention the cooperation in steelmaking industry. The Pakistan steel mills built by USSR in 75-85, due to various reasons, which I do not want to go into here, has been shut since 2015. At last, the owner of the plant, your government, paid attention to the situation, and after having considered different options from restoring it to scrapping it totally and building a brand new steel mill, it now finally decided to consult those who have experience in this particular equipment. And the Russian engineering company now works and formulates an offer maybe for its rehabilitation. I just hope they will be successful. The structure of Pakistani export to Russia does not differ from its global export structure. Textiles, garments, leathers, shoes, foodstuffs. I have focused on Russian exports in my speech, but enhancing the reverse flows of goods is also a key task. The problem is that the volume of Russian exports to Pakistan is twice the size of its imports from Pakistan. Same situation, by the way, with Pakistani global trade in general, huge trade deficit. I hope that Pakistan will find and explore new export niches to Russia. Otherwise, the disproportion in trade will impede the growth of Russian exports to Pakistan as well, because Pakistan just will not earn enough money to pay for them. As yesterday, Consul General Mr. Fedorov told that if the payments problem is resolved, if we shift to payments in national currencies, the trade turnover may expand several folds. I would like one clarification, provided that it will be balanced. So far, it is not. And last but not least, the name of this panel contains the words regional connectivity, and connectivity is always about transport sector. I'm glad to inform that among two problems mentioned by Professor Nafikov, payments and logistics problem is being successfully resolved nowadays. In May 2023, the first direct container shipping service between Pakistan and Russia was launched by Russian shipping company Necoline in cooperation with Pakistani Pakshahin Logistics Group. And we now can dispatch goods from our countries directly. Pakshahin Group Director Abdullah Farooq is among specially invited dignitaries at this conference, and his speech will be at the concluding session. Last year, an agreement between the governments of Russia and Pakistan on the national road transport entered into force. The trial truck convoy successfully delivered Pakistani fruits and other goods through Iran and Azerbaijan to Russia. And the International North-South Transport Corridor provides a shorter and cheaper land road for cargoes from Russia to Iranian ports Bandar Abbas and Chabahar, and vice versa. Compared to traditional sea route via Suez Canal, is cheaper and quicker. Initially, this corridor was aimed to facilitate Russian cargo turnover with India, which is linked with Iranian ports by sea. But now Pakistan's connection to this international North-South transport corridor and its integration with China-Pakistan economic corridor, I think will contribute both to the growth of trade turnover between our countries and to the increase of transit traffic of goods. A test rail shipment of this cargo using eastern wing of this corridor is being prepared right now. According to the schedule, it might be in March. I will not be that optimistic, but it will soon arrive to Pakistan. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Boris Gozia, for sharing your thoughts with us on the status of Pakistan-Russia trade and economic cooperation, for identifying areas in which we can enhance our cooperation, such as agriculture, cybersecurity, medicine, and also for pointing out to some challenges that exist for our businessmen because of lack of banking channels, because of many other reasons. Since yesterday, we have been talking about how Pakistan-Russia relations, despite some challenges, have developed. We have developed cooperation in various fields. There's a lot of potential as well that has been highlighted and will be highlighted during various presentations today. But the milestones that we have achieved would not have been possible without the commitment and dedication of Russian diplomats in Pakistan. I therefore request you to join me in having a big hand for the excellent work that Russian diplomats have been doing in Pakistan in order to promote our relations and cooperation in various fields. Thank you. And our next speaker is Mr. Muhammad Farooq Afzal, ex-president of Pakistan-Russia Business Council. He'll speak on Pakistan-Russia business cooperation, opportunities and challenges.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Honorable Ambassador Qazi Khalilullah Sahab, Mr. Boris, the Trade Deputy Head of Russian Federation in Karachi, all the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, and Drastviche. Well, first of all, I'm really glad to be here, and thank you, the organizers for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to speak on my very special subject, that is Russia and Pakistan relationship. And at the same time, I would like everyone to please give a very big round of applause to the organizers for organizing such a great event, which was the need of the time. So please give him a round of applause, please. Thank you very much. Well, I have been involved in Russian Federation for last about 21 years. And I had my office and warehouse for 10 years in Moscow. And I have been around in Russia, in Moscow, St. Petersburg, Ivanova, Krasnodar, Rostov-on-Don, Ekaterinburg, Sochi, St. Petersburg, and some other, Kazan and Tatarstan. So I've been to even Siberia. So I will be basically sharing with you my experience and about the potential of trade relationship between Pakistan and Russian Federation, the ground realities. I will not speak any diplomatic language, but I'll be very straight in letting you know that what really needs to be done and what has not been done in this regard. I mean, if you look at the Russia, which is 140 million population and having a GDP of PPP more than $5 trillion and having export, despite of having sanctions of $465 billion, an import of $365 billion, and having reserves $597 billion. That is the dollars and the gold reserves. And the per capita income is $14,700. That is the real one, So having this potential, and the largest country as far as the land is concerned, and look at the potential this country has with 9 time zones. I mean, touching Alaska with US, Vladivostok to Japan, and from here, the Russia with the European Poland, and with the Asia and the Siberia with China. So it is connected with all these subcontinents almost. And when we speak about the regional connectivity, when I look at that perspective, it's about $30 trillion regional connectivity consumer GDP. And look at our trade, Pakistan specifically trade, and when we speak about regional connectivity, it is Russia, China, Iran, even I take some time India as well because we don't have good relation with them, Afghanistan and the Pakistan. Look at this region. If we really speak about this regional connectivity, Pakistan can prosperous like anything, I tell you. But unfortunately, the policies, since the inception of Pakistan, we have not been able to make our such policies, not even diplomatic policies, I would say, and the trade policies towards these regions. We always looked at the Western countries, US and the Europe. And today, I'm sorry to say that if all the audience will be given US visa, everyone will fly the next morning, I tell you. I mean, this is what they have done with their Vidya war and everything. But we are missing this one, this Russia. You see, now we talk about the potential. Since I was chairman for Pak Russia Business Council for 14 years, and I have been around, I had an opportunity to speak, to discuss with the government officials, not here in Pakistan, but Russia, the chamber associations, all over Pakistan, and Russian Federation as well. So I know the ground realities. You see, there are certain challenges. I mean, it's very easy to pinpoint or to criticize anything. But we need to tell the solution for that as well. We criticize, okay, this is bad, this, okay, what is the solution? No one has solution. So we need to discuss about the solutions. What are really the solutions to resolve these issues and challenges? So during my tenure actually and over experience, so I have made certain issues and challenges. The first issue is market access. And what is the challenge? Challenge is heavy duties and complicated customs procedures on the Russian side. And what is basically the solution is that we need to sign PTA, Preferential Trade Agreement. The draft of this PTA is ready, I remember in like, since 2012, Excellency, if I'm not wrong, 2012 or 2013, but we have not been able to sign this Preferential Trade Agreement because of this Euro-Asia Union. Because whenever we speak about that, the Russians say that since it's a Euro-Asia Union, so we have to have consensus with all the 5 countries, that is Armenia, Belarus, Russia, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. So Russia being being the power, they can always convince these countries to sign this Preferential Trade Agreement with Pakistan. And this can really be done. But unfortunately, it has never been taken any initiative from the Russian side as well. Though, as a business community from the chambers, we always requested, but nothing has happened. The second issue is, it is the deadlock in the communication between the 2 business communities. We need to enhance that. And the challenge is what? Restoring the dormant contacts between the chambers and trade bodies. I hardly see any Russian delegation from the business community coming to Karachi. Karachi is the commercial hub and economic engine of Pakistan. Whenever they come to Islamabad. Islamabad is a beautiful and diplomatic city. So they don't see much businessmen there. So the thing is, there is a need to have good businessmen, good delegations to Karachi, to Lahore. They should go and meet the people for B2B meeting. Same with the Pakistan, we have taken delegations to the Russian Federation several times. Now, the regular contact between the business communication of our countries, that MOU between, you see, MOU, we always sign MOUs. We have signed, I think, thousands MOUs, but nothing has been converted into agreements. MOU is very easy to sign. I can sign MOU right away. It's memorandum of understanding. But did we follow that up? Did we implement? Did we convert that into an agreement? Nothing. So we need to really do some agreements onto that. The third is lack of awareness of each other countries. This event is very important, I tell you, because the young generation is sitting here and they must be knowing about Russian Federation and Pakistan's relationship, what is going on, and they should learn that. So the lack of awareness, not only here in Pakistan, but is also in Russian Federation. I've been around Russia to Chamber Association. Trust me, nobody knew the potential of Pakistan lying for the Russian companies and the vice versa actually. So it is really very important to have more closer contacts. So the suggestion is to bring the closer of the people of both the countries, the governments of both the countries on the initiative should send cultural troupe, media people, students exchange groups to each other countries and exchange of TV programs. This is very important. Awareness is very important because unfortunately in Pakistan people do not know about Russia because of the Western media. They have very negative perception towards the Russian Federation, which needs to be basically eradicated. Then the issue is another issue, which is diversification of our exports to Russian regions and vice versa for both. And the challenge is channels and means of transportation to our consumer goods to the Russian regions. Russia is not only Moscow and St. Petersburg. I've been to Siberia, to Yekaterinburg, and to Tatarstan, to Bashkortostan. Believe me, there's a great potential. Even the Barnaul, Siberia, they are the most, I think in Siberia, there's a city, Novosibirsk. This is the most influential part of Russia, economic influential part of Russia, but we have never been to there. China is there. 95% products are being sold there, Chinese, but our Pakistanis, they don't go there. Now, the proposal is to diversify Pakistani exports across Russia, including the rich Ural and Siberian regions, and vice versa, of course, for Russian as well. Goods transportation, from that we suggest connecting these regions with Gwadar Port, This port will already being connected with the Central Asian states and China with the network of roads. So we can use this one. The other issue is easy access for Russian buyers to Pakistani consumer goods and vice versa. The challenge is building infrastructure in Russian region and in Pakistan. And what is the proposal? Establishing of a bank. Sir, we have been following, chasing not only Pakistani government, but the Russian government to please open bank here in Pakistan and the Russian Federation. Unfortunately, it's been 20 years. We have been asking for this, begging for this, that please open this bank, but nothing has been yet into that. Then the warehousing. We need to have the warehouse because it's a new market for us. We need to have warehouses in the Russian Federation, and the same facility can be given to the Russian Federation in Pakistan actually, and display centers, so that we can basically tell them what Pakistan has potential for them. And we need to emphasize on that. Then the sixth issue is selling of our consumer goods rapidly. Competitiveness, and the challenge is what? Competitiveness of Pakistani consumer goods against the other South Asian countries, Southeast Asia countries. So Ministry of Commerce, they should think about this freight. I mean, I know I don't like subsidies, but since Russia is far, so we have certain challenges for that. So there's no harm in giving a freight subsidy at least to the people who are selling their goods to the Russian Federation via sea or via road, because it's very expensive, even if it's by sea, $10,000, $8,000 for one container. So they should also think about this, that certain products, they can be given this subsidy, and I will let you know the potential which we have in Russian Federation. The seventh one is difficult and long procedure of acquiring the visa. This is very important also. Unfortunately, again, Honorable Qazi Khalilullah Sahab, we have been begging with the Russian Federation to please facilitate at least the business community for a speedy visa. But unfortunately, as of today, there is no such thing which has been done by the Russian Federation, because if the business community cannot travel, how we can meet our businessmen? If I have to go to Russia, I cannot plan. I mean, I have Schengen visa multiple, I have other countries multiple visas. I can just go in 2 days, 3 days time and meet my customers there. But if Russia, for tourist visa, it takes 6 weeks to get visa, provided if I have paid everything, and if I have to get business visa, we are asked that we should get invitation from the Ministry of Interior from the Russian Federation. And the agents in Russia, they take more than $500 to provide that invitation here, and it takes 2 months at least to get the invitation, then pay here and all that stuff. So Russians should also think about that for at least business community, on the recommendation of Federation of Chamber of Commerce and the respective Chamber of Commerce, they should facilitate and they should really give speedy visas to the business community at least, so that we can have more and more interaction with the business community in Russian Federation. This is very important. Then inclusion of private sector in actually the intergovernmental commissions. Unfortunately, what happens that in Pakistan, all our ministries, everyone is in the intergovernmental commission meeting, but the business community is not there, hardly there. I used to go there, I have attended 6 intergovernmental commission meetings in Moscow and in Islamabad on my personal efforts actually. And I used to be part of those intergovernmental commissions, so I really wanted to know what's going on. But unfortunately, the government, they do not take, Pakistani government do not take the stakeholders during the intergovernmental commission meetings. So they should, this is the proposal of that. Okay, now awareness, the issue is awareness about the potential of consumer goods market. What is that? How? The challenge is organizing a single country exhibition. It's a very basic thing. I don't like this. But since I still feel that Russia is a new market for us, we need to have single country exhibition. Look at India. Indian Federation of Chamber of Commerce. They organize their exhibition 15 days. On spot sales is allowed. All of Russia, the whole year, they are there. They are making their space. They are in Siberia, they are in everywhere, But look at Pakistanis. We don't do that. I mean, there is really need, the proposal at TDAP and the Pakistan Ministry of Commerce, they should facilitate such things so that we can give awareness of our products, consumer products, to the Russian Federation market actually. And still, this PTA and PFD, FTA will lead to that. Then the investment. Issue is investment. And challenge is what? To remove barriers for the promotion of cross-border investments. So what the suggestion is to allocate a trade zone, investment zone for the Russian Federation. And we can allow them to have their industry here, and we can allocate a certain portion in Pakistan, as other countries they have done. And we should do that so that we can have, you see, the Pakistan and Russia bilateral trade investment opportunity or potential cannot be, achieved unless they have strategic investment in Pakistan. When I say strategic investment, it's shipbuilding here in Pakistan, it's infrastructure, building of the infrastructure in Pakistan, and in pipeline, other stuff, Until unless Russians do that, down the road, the message will not go in a positive way to the Russian Federation business community. This is very important. Then energy crisis, we always, in 2008, I went to Bashkortostan and I brought solar panel project. And believe me that when I spoke with the, here authorities, they discouraged me. They said, no, what are you talking about? At that time, 2008. Now we are, after everyone is, running after now solar. The coal, Russia is good at coal. They had power plants, the largest 270 billion metric tons, the coal reserves, largest coal reserves in Russia. They have the technology, but we never use that. And our masters, they never allowed us to basically mine our coal in Pakistan. We have about 81 billion metric tons coal reserves in Pakistan. And now when all over the world, they have stopped producing energy in coal, now we have started this, Now the challenge is now sanctions on Russia issue. The challenge is now how to promote trade and investment opportunities. Government of Pakistan, they have issued barter trade SRO for Pakistan, for Russia, Afghanistan, and Iran. But they have not given any mechanism. They have given lollipop to the business community. In order to go for the barter trade, where money is not involved, we need to have banks. Still, we need to have banks in both the countries so that we really do those transactions. So there's no mechanism. It's been 1 year and nothing has been entered yet. I think that currency swap and the barter trade is the best solution for that. You see, if you look at the potential, I'm just finishing my meeting because you see, I'm not a scholar, I'm not a PhD. I just wanted to share my experience. You see, the Russian Federation has $62 billion market size. 42 billion is only garments. And what is our export? Look at our bilateral trade is less than $700 million. And we have not yet, in 2004, when I went to Russia, Pakistan's bilateral trade was only $145 million. And our export was only $10 million. We started organizing exhibitions in Russia, Pakistan-Russia Business Council. And in 2013, we had $210 million export of textiles goods into Russian Federation. It's because of the awareness, so we did that. The thing is, at the same time, $45 billion market size is for the fruit, food, vegetables, and all that stuff. Where we are, we have identified 7 traditional products. Look at this, you see the pharmaceutical, they have gap of $24 billion. $24 billion of pharmaceuticals. Where we are, you see, it's same like leather, $5.5 billion market size. How much we have exported? $50 million? Nothing. I understand that there are sanctions and all that stuff, but still, before sanction, what we did? Nothing. We didn't do anything. Same with the rice is about $1.4 billion rice market size is there. So there are so much potential if even surgical goods is 2.5, these sports goods, $3.5 billion market size. You see, the thing is, potential is there, and we really need to capitalize those opportunities in the Russian Federation, and for that, I have already given the proposals. I think if these are given importance and we make an aggressive strategy, we really can go and we can improve our bilateral trade and investment opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Farooq Afzal Sahab, for your very frank views on the challenges that both countries, Pakistan and Russia, face in the field of trade and economic cooperation, the difficulties that our businessmen are facing, some of the passionate way in which you put across these problems suggests that some of the problems are really serious. I couldn't agree with you more that we need cultural cooperation, people-to-people contact, implementation of MOUs and agreements that we have signed. And I also agree with you on the visa issue. It's number one, not easy to get visa for our nationals for Russia. And number two, I have personally experienced that the attitude of Russian border control officers is not friendly towards the Pakistan citizens when they arrive at various airports in Russia. So I think our Russian colleagues can do something in this regard as we embark on a journey to further enhance our relations, particularly trade and economic cooperation. The problems that both sides face must be addressed. I mean, I know Mr. Farooq Afzal for many years now. He is a very well-respected businessman both in Pakistan and Russia. When I was going as ambassador to Russia in 2016, I was advised to meet him before my departure, and he was the first businessman I met in Karachi. He provided useful information to me, and I see that what he has said today remains relevant, and I'm sure that his thoughts will be reflected in the report that is prepared by the two sides on this conference. Our next speaker is Professor Dr. Yevgenia Makhmatova. She represents Financial University under the government of the Russian Federation.
So, respected Chairman, dear representatives of the Federal Urdu University, and all the participants of the first Pakistani-Russian conference. I really appreciate that you invited me to participate in this event, and I really hope that this first conference will give benefits to all of us, to both Russia and Pakistan in different areas, in economic issues and political issues and security issues. And you can see that even now when we are talking about economic cooperation, we cannot but speak about security. Of course, it is very important. And of course, humanitarian sphere. So actually, a lot has been already said about the current level of economic cooperation and relations between Russia and Pakistan, and the perspectives for this cooperation. And well, actually, I totally agree with the previous speakers about possibilities and opportunities that our countries have. I will also focus on economic issues and that points that could make our countries closer to each other. So Russian-Pakistani relations have been experiencing a renaissance in the political and economic relations over the past few years. The driver of this growth is the mutual interest of the parties in entering new markets, expanding and diversifying transport and logistics projects, and developing energy routes, of course. A lot has been already said about this. So Pakistan's population and economy are growing, which certainly requires additional markets for its products, external investments in infrastructure facilities, and incentives for cooperation within multilateral organizations. So taking into account the anti-Russian sanctions policy of Western countries and the new opportunities on both investments and energy tracts, the expansion of contacts with Pakistan is of great interest to Russia. Thus, we can observe the growing mutual interest of the parties in each other in terms of expanding bilateral economic and energy cooperation. Moreover, the current foreign policy agenda on the global world contributes to the creation of a positive dialogue and is aimed at expanding those reserves in the economy that previously, for certain reasons, were not involved in bilateral cooperation. Russia and Pakistan are actively converging within the framework of multilateral organizations, including the flagship economic project in the post-Soviet space, the Eurasian Economic Union, that has already been mentioned by the previous speaker. Yeah, today the integration of Pakistan and the Eurasian Economic Union may be complicated and restricted by some factors, but certain steps are being taken towards reapproachment with this structure. For example, back in 2015, Pakistan indicated its interest in concluding a free trade area agreement with the Eurasian Economic Union. And in 2023, the Russian-Pakistani Protocol on Cooperation within the framework of the unified system of tariff preferences of the Eurasian Economic Union was signed. The document is aimed at expanding trade and economic ties between the two countries and reducing the administrative burden on business. You know that Eurasian Economic Union was established in 2014 for the purposes of organizing disordered trade among the post-Soviet states and to save the economies from the growing Chinese economic dominance and expansion. Eurasian Economic Union provides friendly tariff policy for partner countries and for freedoms like freedom of capital, freedom of transfer of capital, labor forces, goods and services for member countries. Even as severe sanctions politics of the Western countries that actually started, well, in the very 2014, didn't stop the increase in mutual trade turnover. This situation became possible because of implementing stimulating measures in rate politics and in equalizing standards of production in some sectors, excluding oil and gas sector. This sector is now under the consideration, and of course there are some restrictions between exporting countries like Russia and Kazakhstan, for example, Russia and Uzbekistan. But as for Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, that is not the member of the Eurasian Union, but is an observer in that organization, there are some exclusions in this case. So if you look at the official statistics of the trade turnover among the member states and between the Eurasian Economic Union and partner countries like Serbia, Vietnam and others, we may see the positive dynamics in most of positions of the trade in most countries. For example, recently Iran has signed a permanent free trade zone with the Eurasian Economic Union. Until 2024, it was a limited free trade zone, and Iran had to prolong it regularly. But last year, both countries agreed to sign a permanent agreement that is also aimed at stimulating bilateral trade cooperation and increase in trade turnover. You know that Iran is also under sanctions, and this cooperation can be beneficial for both countries also. Well, the Eurasian Economic Union contains 5 countries that had been already mentioned before, and this union has been existing in sanctions since the beginning of its foundation in 2014, but it is statistically proved that the union brings benefits to the member and partner countries, not only in trade turnover, but also in stimulating domestic production and people-to-people cooperation. Moreover, this union is one of those international organizations where countries are developing the partnership in national currencies to protect their national economies. Well, trade and economic relations between Russia and Pakistan, despite their rather modest size, still have a positive trend. Russia plans to cooperate with Pakistan in the field of energy engineering, the aviation industry, pharmaceuticals, and biotechnologies, as well as supply automobile, railway, and agricultural machinery. In addition, the Russian side is interested in implementing major infrastructure projects in Pakistan, such as the modernization of the Pakistan Steel Mills metallurgical plant, for example. And these topics have been more or less already discussed, so I will not focus on them long. So trade and economic cooperation between Russia and Pakistan has good potential. Again, the volume of trade between Russia and Pakistan remains relatively perspective. The main items of Pakistan's export to Russia were clothing, textiles, citrus fruit, medical equipment, and a number of other goods. Wheat, oil, and a number of other fuels are mainly supplied from Russia to Pakistan. And mutual trade is expected to increase, and the authorities of both countries generally expect to increase trade in the future. These are certain prerequisites for this. The agreement between Russia and Pakistan on road transport, which was signed in 2022 and entered into force in 2023, allowed to start a road transport communication between the two countries. Also in 2023, a memorandum on the establishment of the Belarus, Russia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan International Transport Corridor was signed on the sidelines of the first transport forum of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization countries. And this project seems to be perspective, but of course there are obvious restrictions like unpredictable situation in Afghanistan and, for example, problems with insurance from companies in terms of sanctions, anti-Russian sanctions. In 2024, on the sidelines of St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, the Ministry of Transport of the Russian Federation and the Ministry of Railways of Pakistan signed a memorandum of understanding and cooperation in the field of railway transport again. As a part of these agreements, the parties have established a working group for the implementation of test rail transportation using the International Transport Corridor North-South railway infrastructure. So the bulk of cargo from Russia to Pakistan is delivered by sea. Russia has significantly increased wheat supplies to Pakistan over the past few years due to sea transportation. At the beginning of 2024, Russia became the main exporter of wheat to the country, with shipments reaching 1 million tons in the first quarter of the year. So there has been a clear upward trend in cargo shipments between Russia and Pakistan in recent years. In 2024, the volume of maritime cargo transportation between the two countries doubled. In 2025, a further increase in indicators is expected. But the current level of cooperation is obviously not enough, and it is not only about economic ties themselves. Well, Russia and Pakistan could take additional measures to increase demand in qualitative and not that expensive education from Pakistani youth. As a basic example, well, but with some amendments, like, for example, a big role of English language in educational process in Pakistan, it is possible to take the educational model of cooperation between Russia and some Central Asian countries, like, for example, Uzbekistan. You know that Russia has the majority of its international branches in Uzbekistan, more than 15 even more branches of Russian universities. They are located in Uzbekistan, in the capital, Tashkent, in Samarkand, and some other cities. There are also some branches, some departments of Russian universities in Tajikistan. For example, in Central Asia, students study in Russia and they get Russian diploma. If they want to continue their education in Russia, they may apply for master's degree in the university they choose in Russia. In Tashkent and some cities of Uzbekistan, universities were opened as well as new educational programs of professional training were launched. In the long perspective, this approach could become a significant assistance in developing both economic and humanitarian ties between Russia and Pakistan. What else can be a long-standing interest of Russia in boosting economic cooperation with Pakistan? My perception is that Russia, being under massive sanctions attack, is developing its independent sectors in computer technologies, medicine, agriculture, banking sector. And Russia is seriously interested in improving cooperation with the countries that may be potential importers of these products of the Russian industry. Joint partnerships also could stimulate investment activity, and my humble perception here is that now is the very moment when the cooperation between our countries can grow more. And people-to-people communication may help establishing the level of trust and understanding in both countries that is so much important now. Thank you very much for your attention and for your patience. And for free visa also, thank you very much.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Worthy Chair, distinguished co-panelists, and honorable guests from Russia, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, Dobre din. It's indeed an honor to address this August gathering, and for that, I am grateful to the organizers for the invitation and for the hospitality. Much has been talked about regarding the bilateral relation. Almost every aspect is covered. Definitely there will be repetitions, and for that I apologize in advance. Okay, the post-Soviet Pakistan-Russia data transformed into entente cordiale culminating in close security, trade, and economic cooperation. Both the countries have commonality of views and approach on regional issues of security and connectivity in post-US NATO Central Asia. Foreign policies are regional as well as global. Foreign policies evolve in a strategic regional context which exists and evolves in a global environment. Central Asia's regional context exists and evolves within a larger Eurasian context, which in turn exists and evolves in a global context. Central Asian regional geopolitical landscape has been altered drastically in post-US NATO military withdrawal period. Russia's changed approach to South Asia, influenced by changes in policy goals and regional orientation, resulted in a shift to develop strategic and economic cooperation with Pakistan. Pakistan also reversed the 200 years old frontier policy, which perceived Russia across the Amu Darya as an adversary. The new frontier policy views Russia as a strategic and economic partner in altered Central Asian context. The old frontier policy was designed to develop frontiers of separation, while the new one aims to develop frontiers of connectivity towards the Eurasian heartland. Central and South Asia integration and connectivity to link Russia via Central Asia to South Asia and Indian Ocean is a common interest. Theoretical framework. The theories of realism, hedging, and liberalism all impact and guide Pakistan-Russia relations. Realism guides the bilateral relations as in the anarchic world, states try to maximize their power and interests through alliances when threatened by hegemony. Pakistan and Russia both following defensive realism while formulating their foreign policies and bilateral relations. Hedging theory synthesizes the balancing and bandwagoning concepts of international relations, also guide the bilateral relations. Relatively weak countries hedge at times in conducting relations with major powers to diversify their foreign relations, to maximize economic benefits, and to manage uncertainty. Liberalism emphasizes on states' political and economic cooperation through institutions and economic connectivity. Both the countries developing cooperation through regional international institutions and connectivity. Trade and economic relations. Pakistan's pursuit of economic redemption and energy supplies and Russia's aspiration to expand its economic footprints in Asia brings the two countries together. In 2010, Intergovernmental Commission on Trade and Economic was established. In 2018, central banks of both the countries signed MOU on banking cooperation to facilitate trade. Russia promised an investment of $18.7 billion in 2019 when a 64-member Russian delegation visited Pakistan in 2019. Pakistan and Russia signed the shareholders' agreement in 2021, which outlined the terms to construct PSGP. The MOU on barter trade recently signed in 2024, and the bilateral trade has exceeded $1 billion. Defense and strategic cooperation. Pakistan and Russia established Strategic Dialogue Forum in 2013. The Russian defense minister visited Pakistan in 2014, and the first such visit after 1969, and signed agreements on expansion of defense and military cooperation. Both the countries established Joint Military Consultative Commission in 2018. Pakistan received the 4 Mi-35 helicopters in 2017. Both the countries are regularly undertaking joint military exercises. In 2018, Pakistan and Russia signed the security training agreement to train Pakistani military officers in Russian military institutions for the first time. Shared regional interests and connectivity. Peaceful Afghanistan to serve as a link between Central and South Asia seems the foremost common interest. Russia considers the security and stability of Central Asia vital for its own security and therefore considers maintaining stability in Central Asia its own responsibility. Pakistan and Russia are sensitive to terrorist groups nurturing in Afghanistan and drug trafficking from there. Sustainable peace and economic development in Central Asia and Afghanistan and connectivity between Central and South Asia via stable Afghanistan are common interests. Shared interests in post-US Afghanistan are to counter terrorist organizations present in Afghanistan. Those include ISKP, TTP, ETIM, and IMU, etc. Addressing Afghanistan imbroglio through a regionally coordinated approach and to include Afghanistan in the regional economic process and weave Afghanistan in regional net of connectivity are shared interests. Sino-Russian cooperative arrangement in Central Asia has gained added space in the wake of US military withdrawal from the region. The concept of quadrilateral cooperation between Pakistan, Russia, Central Asia, and China can be decisive in the security and connectivity of Eurasia's heartland. Joy Mitra has already declared Russia, China, Pakistan triumvirate as a reality in 2015. Pakistan-China strategic cooperation reinforces Pakistan-Russia collaboration, while Sino-Russian condominium in Central Asia serves the interests of regional countries in terms of security and connectivity. It can be safely argued that the concept of forming and developing a quadrilateral cooperation between Pakistan, Russia, Central Asia, and China can be decisive in the security and connectivity of Eurasia's heartland. Russia's plan to unify and integrate Eurasian space under the Greater Eurasian Partnership from Eastern Europe to East Asia and South Asia has been absorbed by the countries in the region. Russia's old plans to reach Indian Ocean and pivot to Asia has been reinforced by Ukraine war and Western sanctions. Russia's cooperation with China, Central Asia, Pakistan, Iran, and India to develop trade and logistic corridors is focused under the Greater Eurasian Partnership. Greater Eurasian Partnership seems to be based on the principles of open regionalism. However, Russia's Eurasian Economic Union is based on the principles of close regionalism as a custom union with supranational institutions. Here, it is worth to explain the technicalities because Professor Mahmootova and Mr. Farooqi, they talked about the Eurasian Economic Union. The theoretical framework is that EU is based on the principles of closed regionalism. There are two concepts: open regionalism, which is bilateral, trilateral, or multilateral, a regional integration cooperation or arrangements having no supranational institutions. In contrast, closed regionalism is a custom union, a free trade area, and as a custom union, it has uniform tariff for non-member states. This is the discrimination against the non-members. Then it has supranational institutions like the EU. European Union. That is a closed economic union, and in the end adopted a common currency in the form of euros. Now, what I want to say that if Russia is serious and interested to develop greater Eurasian partnership, it will be better to frame it on the principles of open regionalism. What is BRI? And exactly EU has been following the principles of open regionalism while developing transcontinental trade and logistic corridors. The BRI is based on open regionalism. How? It is a bilateral, trilateral, or multilateral regional integration arrangement. There are no supranational institutions, no discrimination against any other country, regional or extra-regional country. When Mr. Faruqi said that Russians say that we have other members, it means that it is a close custom union and it follows the principle of uniform tariff policy for non-member states. So to develop the greater Eurasian partnership, it must be based on the principles of open regionalism, having no supranational institutions, having no discrimination against the non-member states, non-regional states. And it is not clear how I mean to coordinate and link the Eurasian Economic Union and the BRI, though both the countries, they have declared that they will coordinate, harmonize both the projects. Now, there are other regional economic connectivity plans. Economic Cooperation Organization, it has its own roads and railways corridors. CARE, it has its own corridors. Central Asian Regional Economic Cooperation, China Silk Road Economic Belt, the transcontinental Eurasian corridors from China via Russia to Europe and from China via Central Asia to Europe and West Asia. Now, these are transcontinental corridors. What I am presenting here is a north-south trade and logistic corridor. Let me move toward this. From Russia, Yekaterinburg, via Astana, Tashkent, Kabul, from Peshawar to Lahore and New Delhi, it reaches to South Asia. This is the Asian Highway 7. It is there. Similarly, from Yekaterinburg via Astana, Tashkent, Kabul, and from Kabul it reaches to Kandahar and Quetta, and then it reaches to Karachi and Gwadar. Now, much has been talked about the international north-south transport corridor from Russia via either the Caspian, Iran, Indian Ocean, and then India, or via Azerbaijan. Both can be parallel developed, but in this north-south overland corridor, where no sea is involved, it will benefit the Central Asian region, the South Asian region. And an important development recently, Trump has ordered to revoke the sanctions waiver given to India to develop Chabahar port. It was just before the visit of Modi to USA. So if the sanction waiver to India in the development of Chabahar is revoked by USA, it will have negative implications on the international north-south transport corridor. This can be the best alternative also. And Russia and China may be involved in the development of Chabahar. I mean, if you look at in the east-west direction, the transcontinental trade and logistic corridors, this north-south corridor very efficiently and effectively link those transcontinental corridors with the transoceanic corridors in the north-south direction. So with these words, I think I conclude my presentation and we can discuss in the question-answer session. So I thank you all.
I understand I have a very difficult situation. I am the last obstacle to lunch. And whatever I'm about to say, you have already heard it more than once. So I might sound like a broken record, but because this is how I earn my living, I will still talk about it again. This is the sequence which I will follow, and I assure you that I will be able to cover all this in 10 minutes. However, there are two disclaimers. First of all, whatever I'm about to say are my personal views and should not be attributed to the organization that I represent. And those of you who are not familiar with me or my work or haven't heard me speaking, please remember that I'm a structural realist and whatever I'm about to say comes from that academic view or orientation. So, first of all, what you need to understand, and I don't want to give you a complete lecture on this, is the nature of the international system. And every state follows its national interest, be it USSR during the Cold War or Russia today or Pakistan for that matter. So states and interstate relations are driven by national interest, not by any other ideological or love-hate relationship. So this factor must be kept in mind. And this is why when Pakistan and USSR first came into contact, why Pakistan decided not to join the Soviet camp and eventually ended up in the American bloc. And it is in my understanding, if you ask me today, if we go back to 1947 and if the circumstances are still what they were in 1947, Pakistan would make the same decision and it would be as valid today as it was then. So there is no need to reinvent the history or rewrite the history and suddenly deny whatever has happened. Accept what has happened because it was in your core national interest and that's why you did it. And now whatever you are doing is also in your core national interest. There are different ways at looking at our history of bilateral relationship during the Cold War. Just to give you an idea, you can see I've divided them into 3 phases. The second phase was where our interests to some extent converged, and that is the time when we cooperated as well. This is the time where Tashkent Agreement took place. This is the time where the Soviets gave us the steel mill and all that. But then again, our interest diverged, and that was the 1980s, and we already know what happened during that time. Then came the post-Cold War. This is the time where certain mistakes or shortcomings existed and they affected our bilateral relation trajectory. For instance, 1990s, both countries started as new democracies. Second, Pakistan couldn't differentiate between USSR and Russia. The shadow of Afghan Jihad was there, and the legacy of Afghan Jihad, or the memory of that event, was very fresh on the decision makers on both sides. And then there was a very strong pro-India lobby in Moscow, and that another factor which was very important and still important is Moscow's supplier dependency syndrome. And lastly, on Pakistan's side, Islamabad's outreach to the Central Asian republics without making an arrangement with Russians, which was taken negatively by Moscow. And they thought that this is something that the Pakistanis are doing in their near abroad or backyard. Things started to improve during General Musharraf's time, although there were certain hiccups and blocks in there, and we are making few developments. There are certain positives, there are certain areas where we still need to work on, but things are gradually improving. Now this is where we are at the moment, and as you can see, the world today is going through an intense competition, and it will increase further between the Americans and the Chinese. Although the Americans don't want it, but Europe is again a theater of competition between the global powers as well as Middle East, both of the areas from which the Americans actually wanted to disengage and go into Asia to deal with the Chinese. What are the implications of that, or why it happened? I leave it to your better judgment and understanding. But this has kind of brought them back, or at least didn't allow them to disengage completely, both from Middle East and Europe. And then something that is more important to us in this part of the world is the centrality of India in the new Indo-Pacific strategy of United States. In light of all this, the question mark which I have left is, what is the future of Indo-Russian strategic partnership? And that is something that we need to look at. But the biggest puzzle in all this for the regional countries, especially Pakistan and Russia, is still Afghanistan. We have heard a lot about what is happening, or what is not happening, or what could happen, or what could not happen between Pakistan and Russia in the morning and even in this session. But remember, most of that cannot happen unless you have a peaceful Afghanistan. So, the title actually means where you go. Pakistan, Russia, where you go from here. So what are the prospects of this bilateral relation getting a positive trajectory? There is a growing bilateral partnership and engagement in areas of counterterrorism, Afghanistan, and military-to-military engagement since 2010, where special forces of both countries actually actively participate in exercises and drills. And then there are certain developments on the economic and diplomatic front as well. What is lacking and should be more focused on are people-to-people contact, cultural exchanges, and educational programs. This was something that was highlighted earlier as well. And economical and defense cooperation has more room for improvement. What are the impediments? First of all, the India factor. We need to take the joker in the pack into account. You cannot ignore the fact that India still remains a very important factor. And this is because, as I mentioned earlier, Moscow still suffers from what is in the literature called the supplier's dependency syndrome, meaning that a large chunk of their equipment goes to India, and if they replace it with Pakistan, Pakistan perhaps cannot. If Pakistan switches completely to Moscow for its defense need, it would still be a very minute percentage of what the Indians used to get. So it's pure economics there as well. And this is something that is worrisome for us. We all know of the S-400 that were given to the Indians, and also the BrahMos project, which is directly a concern for us. And then another thing, if you look at the other side of the story, the biggest problem or the biggest concern for Moscow is that Pakistan's Western orientation. During the 1990s and early 2000s, the literature tells us that the opinion in Moscow was that whenever Pakistan actually reaches out to Moscow to get something, they are actually signaling to the West that if you don't give us, we will go there. And they always end up getting a better deal from the French or the Americans. And the fact that none of us, and Ambassador Kazi is an exception, most of our diplomats don't speak Russian. Our academia, hardly anyone can speak Russian. I don't know anyone who can speak Russian. And so is the case with majority of our policymakers and academia. So if we seriously want to pursue this further, this is something we need to work on, especially our very obvious pro-Western orientation, which is still very much there. I think in this very session it was said that, you know, if we are given a visa to US, how many of us would opt not to go? I will leave it to your judgment. What do you think about it? However, One thing that is more important is that we need to get out of what we think that single binary relationship in international or bilateral levels. And the best lesson in that we can learn from is from the quote that is written here, and you can all read, but I'll still read. It's treat your friend as if he will one day be your enemy, and your enemy as if he will one day be your friends. Now link it with realism. There are no permanent friends, there are no permanent enemies, there are only interests. So if there are commonalities of interest between Russia and Pakistan, this is what we need to pursue, and this is how this relationship should go forward. Thank you very much.